Back at it again, RIC and a place to be. Ric Serritella here for another edition of the All Access Football Daily Show. It is Wednesday, September 24th, 2025. Here to get you over the hump. For those of you who are working those 9 to 5s, tuning in wherever you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, and X, please like, share, subscribe. We got a jam-packed edition for you today. And coming up at 10:40 a.m. Eastern Time, our special guest each and every Wednesday will be Howard Balzer, 50 years of covering the National Football League. Of course, Cardinals Wire on USA Today. We'll get a sneak peek preview of the Cardinals Seahawks Thursday night football matchup. We'll also talk to Howard, who's a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame selection committee, about a potential future Hall of Famer in Derrick Henry. Man, he's got the case of the Fumble Rooskies, and he's facing Mr. Fumble Rooski, Andy Reid, and those Kansas City Chiefs this Sunday. Somebody's going to be 1-3. We'll talk to Howard about that. We'll also get into the news here in New Jersey. We are broadcasting live from the All Access Football Studios here from the confines of the Jersey Shore and into your viewing monitor. And right up the road, it's the start of a new era, the Jackson Dart era, that is. But where do the Giants move from here? Is it time to clean house? We'll talk to Howard about that. We've also got some breaking news coming at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We're not allowed to announce it until then. So we're going to go overtime here on this special edition of the All Access Football Daily Show. We're live each and every day, 7 days a week, no days off. Tomorrow, Chad Ryder from NFL.com will join us. We got a Football Friday affair. Guest still to be determined. And then Saturday, my favorite day of the week, it's our college football pregame show with an NFL draft slant. Veteran scout Russ Landy from the NFL, XFL, CFL scout joins us each and every Saturday for that. And then Sunday, the NFL Pick'em will try to do better this week. We are 28-20 against the spread when it comes to the NFL. Now, we will start off in the NFL, and I will tell you, I worked long and hard on a tremendous rundown for today's show, and then it mysteriously disappeared this morning. So we're going to do the best we can. If this great game of football has taught me anything, it's to learn how to adapt and adjust. So we will do that here, and we'll get into it. You know, we just posted the world famous All Access Football Report this morning on the website, read by 50,000 subscribers from 70 countries around the world and all 32 NFL teams. If you're not subscribed yet, what are you doing? If you like football, you'll love allaccessfootball.com. Year-round coverage of the NFL draft and everything. Pigskin, of course, All Access Football Daily Show is your home for real football talk. So buckle up, hunker down, and also in the world-famous All Access Football Report are our exclusive rankings of the NFL, CFL, college football, indoor football, United League football. Pretty soon, the Continental Football League will have rankings for this new league that kicks off summer of 2026. And wasn't it a great show yesterday with the commissioner, Mike Kelly, who joined us and gave us the whole lowdown on the new league? And we have isolated that interview over on the YouTube channel, like we'll be isolating all of our interviews moving forward. So check it out, like it, share it, subscribe it. We are trying to get a super producer here. So if you want to support the show, we've got YouTube subscriptions, Facebook stars, however you want to get down in the football universe. We talk everything football. Now, NFL power rankings. You know, we post them every Wednesday over on the allaccessfootball.com. I haven't really talked about them yet here on the show, and this is our 24th episode. So I think it's about time now we gauge the temperature of how the NFL power rankings shake out, according to me, at least. And so sitting atop our power rankings are the Buffalo Bills, one of those 3-0 teams. And, you know, Buffalo, I found an interesting note here. This is pretty significant. The Buffalo Bills have not lost the turnover battle in the last 25 straight games. That's an NFL record. And that's how you win ball games. You know, you always hear the coach speak, got to win the turnover battle. Well, Buffalo's doing that, and they've been doing it for almost a year and a half, 25 straight games. It's truly remarkable when you put that into perspective. Okay, the world champion Philadelphia Eagles, also 3-0, come in at number 2 on our power rankings. We've talked about the game planning and scheming on a week-to-week basis kind of reminds me of the Bill Belichick days during the New England dynasty. And one week they'd be a ground and pound offensive attack. The next week they'd air it out. And every single week the Eagles have changed their identity. And they can do that when you have Jalen Hurts as your quarterback, Saquon Barkley as your running back, Pro Bowl wide receivers, and A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Good luck trying to stop these Philadelphia tush-push Eagles. And the Los Angeles Rams tried to do that once again. They came up short in the NFC divisional matchup. They also came up short this past week with that big Jordan Davis blocked field goal. However, I still have the Rams sitting at number 3 at 2-1. And the NFC is very competitive. I've got the Detroit Lions now at 2-1, coming off their victory over the Baltimore Ravens. And we'll get to Baltimore in just a second. But the LA Chargers holding strong. They've won 3 divisional games now. They've beaten every team in their division. They're sitting at 3-0. And the LA Chargers are a banged-up team. You know, Khalil Mack is out. Rashawn Slater's out for the year. They will get Mack back at some point this season. They also got the news Najee Harris will be out for the year. But coaching matters in the National Football League, and the Chargers have a good one. You saw them take a convincing victory over Denver and take hold of that strong AFC West. So the undefeated 3-0 Chargers coming at number 5. The undefeated 3-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming in at number 6. And you know what? This team is all banged up too. And they got some more bad news yesterday. Mike Evans, another potential Pro Football Hall of Fame inductee, when he decides to hang up the cleats, he's now got a strained hamstring. He's going to miss 3 to 4 weeks. Of course, Chris Godwin, the wide receiver there, is already out. Emeka Egbuka, the rookie, has been thrust into the spotlight, and he's going to be counted on now to play an even larger role moving forward for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are down their starting offensive tackles, down an offensive guard, down Kalijah Kancey, but Todd Bowles' defense is ready to play at all times, and this offense has been unbelievable. The magical Baker Mayfield. By the way, we have our quarterback rankings posted as well. And Baker Mayfield, I think he is now, I've been saying he's a top 10 quarterback. I believe he's playing like a top 5 quarterback. I also think that he's a strong MVP candidate here in the early NFL season. So Tampa Bay coming in at number 6. Now, 7 and 8 is interesting because I've got 2 1-2 teams in my top 10 power rankings. And I'm not ready to bury the Baltimore Ravens or the Kansas City Chiefs at 1-2. And both of these teams need a win badly this week, and they face each other. And we talked about it in the beginning of the Open. Derrick Henry, man, this guy, I believe, is going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. But, man, 3 consecutive games of fumbles. You look around the Baltimore locker room, they sound like a defeated team. You see the frustrations on the sidelines between Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry during the game. And, you know, he said, I'm just trying to work through it. But at this stage, it seems like a mental thing that Derrick Henry needs to overcome. So we'll see how this matchup shakes out. And again, we got Howard Balzer coming up at 10:40 to talk more about it. Now, Kansas City's getting a little bit healthier. They're going to get stronger each and every week. They'll be getting Rashee Rice back from his suspension list in 3 weeks. Xavier Worthy also expected to return this week in a limited capacity. And even if Worthy's not fully healthy, he can be a valuable asset just as a decoy, right? Because you got to respect the deep speed. You got to respect his ability to take you long. And Tyreek Thornton, we mentioned it, the former second-round pick out of New England. He's got jet burners strapped to the ankles. He's been making plays for the Chiefs. Jalen Royals, the rookie out of Utah State, came back last week. Didn't really get a lot of run, but I'm definitely expecting Jalen Royals to be sprinkled into the offensive mix there for the Kansas City Chiefs. So Baltimore at 7, Kansas City at 8. Ironically enough, right now, this could change. I feel like the Chiefs are going to win this game at home, so they could flip-flop there in the power rankings. And then I have the Green Bay Packers at 2-1, obviously coming off of a disappointing loss against the Cleveland Brownies. But Green Bay, still, you can't discredit what they did the first 2 weeks. So they come in at number 9. And how about the Indianapolis Colts? Oh, baby, are you kidding me? The Colts are on my top 10. I can't remember the last time. I've been doing this top 10 power rankings for the last couple years. I can't even remember the last time I had the Colts in the top 10, sitting at 3-0, and Indianapolis defensive. We've talked so much about the offensive prowess, they didn't punt the first two games, and the offense is really crushing it. But how about defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, who was formerly with the Bengals, one time considered a hot head coaching candidate? He's got the defense thrive. This defense has got some big time players now. One note I picked up: Cam Bynum, the big playmaking safety, he's emerged as a leader on this defensive squad. And Coach Anaromo saying that Cam Bynum comes in every Friday for an hour to meet with him and go over the defensive game plan. And Bynum kind of playing the role of player coach and leading that Colts defensive unit. Of course, Zaire Franklin and Brenston Buckner and so many talented players on that Colts defense. Now, they will be down cornerback Kenny Moore. I think he showed up on the injury report, but Bynum and Moore have had back-to-back pick six interception returns in the last 2 weeks for that Indianapolis Colts defense. So the offense getting a lot of credit, but we should also tip our hat to the Colts defense as well. And one team that did not crack my top 10, just sitting outside, is 5 of the 6 undefeated teams are in my top 10. The San Francisco 49ers just on the outside looking in. And we mentioned the banged up Bucks, the banged up Chargers, the 49ers probably have more injuries than any team. And now Nick Bosa now out for the season. Terrible news there in San Francisco. So those are the top 10 NFL power rankings. Okay. I do have some news and notes that we'll get to here to wrap up the NFL portion of the show. So Houston Texans, they release CJ Gardner-Johnson, just not a fit in the locker room. And, that's one of the things you have to consider when you bring in a guy like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is, Philadelphia has a very, very strong veteran locker room and maybe can I'll use the word tolerate the personality of CJ Gardner-Johnson, because there's so many boisterous personalities in that room. And Nick Sirianni, give him credit for being able to manage all these players. But, there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes, which led to the Eagles getting rid of him. Now, he played a key role in their Super Bowl run there last year. But, short-lived stint in Houston. We will now see where Chauncey Gardner-Johnson lands. It'll be interesting to see what team is willing to put up with his antics. He's a very outspoken, free-spirited player, speaks what's on his mind, no filter, and that just rubbed people the wrong way there in the Houston locker room, okay? Also, the New York Jets made a trade. Their defense is struggling. We've talked about it in the past. They got a razor-thin secondary there behind Sauce Gardner. So they go out, they make a trade for with the Tennessee Titans. They bring in cornerback Jarvis Brownlee Jr. They trade a 2026 7th-round pick and in exchange for a 2026 6th-round pick. So the Titans get a 2026 6th-round pick. The Jets get Brownlee and a 2026 7th-round pick. So basically they flipped rounds in this upcoming draft as part of the Jarvis Brownlee deal, in case you missed that. Now, speaking of the Titans, it has not been a rosy start there in Tennessee for the rookie signal caller Cam Ward. Head coach Brian Callahan announcing that he's going to now give up play calling duties. And, I've always been skeptical about these first-year head coaches coming in and calling plays. Like, I think now more than ever before in the National Football League, you need to be a CEO head coach first and foremost. And if you've never done that job before, play calling duties is a full-time job. So I just don't think that the NFL business model, the way it's structured now year-round and in season, like everybody is looking for an edge. You've got specialty front office executives and Callahan, it's just too much, in my humble opinion. And, Brian Callahan recognizes that. So, quarterback, here's what's interesting. So, quarterback coach Bo Hardigree will take over as the Titans play caller. And this is intriguing. Offensive coordinator Nick Holtz, he's almost like leapfrogged by Bo Hardigree. Now, Holtz will still help build the offensive game plan, but seems a little bit weird where you would think your offensive coordinator would assume play calling duties, but no, in Tennessee, it will be the quarterback coach. And maybe Bo Hardigree has a special relationship with Cam Ward. I don't know. Maybe we can pop up to Ron Davenport at some point and talk to him about it. He does a great job covering the Titans. Let's see what else we got. The Washington Football Commanders, Terry McLaurin trending towards not playing this week due to a quad injury, and he's going to now seek other opinions when it comes to that injury. He's unlikely to play this week. Doesn't appear to be a serious injury, although he is going to miss at least one game, it sounds like, this upcoming Sunday. All right. We've got Howard Balzer coming up at 10:40 a.m. Eastern. And also, we've got some college football news for you here in the next segment that we'll get to. Maybe we'll take a look at my college football power rankings as well. Just also a couple of passings that I want to acknowledge here on the All Access Football Show. Bobby Greer, a longtime Patriots front office executive, former coach, former scout, largely responsible for selecting, being, the leading force behind the selection of Tom Brady during his time in New England. He was the running backs coach when Bill Parcells arrived, and Parcells kicked him back upstairs as a scout. And Bobby Greer, he basically is responsible for the Tom Brady draft selection, and he worked with the Patriots from 1981 all the way until that 2000 draft. A little bit of a parting gift for Bobby Greer and that New England franchise. Now, he did go on to work for the Houston Texans for 16 years, and then also spent the past 8 years of his career as a consultant to the Miami Dolphins, where his son, Chris Greer, is the general manager. So Bobby Greer passes away at the age of 82. Also, we did not touch base on UCF coach Sean Clark, the offensive line coach there, passing away at 50 years old. And yesterday, news came down the wire. TMZ had it. Rudy Johnson, the former Cincinnati Bengals running back, has now passed away at the age of 45. TMZ reporting that he had been struggling with CTE effects. And so we lose Rudy Johnson way too early. And then a part of the media brethren, Dale Lally, if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, clearly you are familiar with Dale Lally, who passed away at the age of 56. And he had covered the team for over 30 years on the beat, starting in the late 80s when he was in college. He had been covering this team. Very familiar face in the Pittsburgh community. So we rest in peace and share our thoughts and prayers to the football community and those families there. All right. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the college football power rankings. We've also got some head coach candidates for the vacant Oklahoma State job. We'll talk about what that means. Also, the Heisman Trophy frontrunner goes down with an injury. We'll talk about that and a whole lot more. I also listened to the entire Steve Sarkisian 33-minute press conference yesterday. I've got some interesting notes from that, and we'll talk about it, be about it, right after this. Don't go anywhere. Hey, RIC in a place to be. Ric Serritella checking in from the legendary Jersey Shore for the world-famous All Access Football, and you're tuned in to the All Access Football Daily Show, our newest venture here at the world-famous All Access Football, read by all 32 NFL teams and 50,000 subscribers from around the world. And I've been blessed and fortunate enough to work in this great game of football for the past 2 decades. It's our 24th season of providing you independent analysis when it comes to the NFL draft and everything pigskin, whether it's the NFL, college football, NFL draft, CFL, UFL. We'll be with you each step of the way. especially for draft season when we really get into high mode. Of course, it's all brought to you by the 2026 NFL Draft Bible, published in April, featuring over 500 in-depth scouting reports with our boots-on-the-ground analysis. We'll be on location at the All-Star Games, the NFL Scouting Combine, the Pro Day circuit, counting you down to that 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh. And be sure you check us out over at allaccessfootball.com. We've got a great promo discount for you listeners at home. If you enter our promo code RICVIP, you'll get a 30% discount off of all of our premium content. You'll unlock the magic. Get our NFL Draft Insider Reports, Scouting Notebook, of course, the World Football All Access Football Report, published on Wednesday. It's your new home for real football talk. So follow along, give us a shout. We hope you're enjoying the show. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X, please give it a like, a share, a subscribe, and we'll be with you each and every day here, 7 days a week, live, 10 a.m. Eastern, no days off, rain, sleet, hail, snow. The show must go on. For Ric Serritella and the All Access Football Daily Show, keep it locked, everybody. All right, we're back at it again. RIC in the place to be. Ric Serritella telling it like it is when it comes to the NFL draft and everything pigskin here on the All Access Football Daily Show. We're live 7 days a week, 10 a.m. Eastern. It is your home for real football talk, and we encompass the entire football universe. If you go over to the website, check out our world famous All Access Football Report, published every Wednesday, presented by Sports Management Worldwide, read by 50,000 subscribers from 70 countries around the world. We thank you so much for your support and all 32 NFL teams. Make sure you go and subscribe. Of course, the 2026 NFL Draft Bible coming in April, featuring over 500 in-depth scouting reports. And you can follow along on the website. We got NFL draft watches being published almost on the regular. If you go over to our rankings tab, we just updated the top 30 prospects at each position. We still got to unveil the safeties and update them, but we just posted the cornerbacks just this morning. If we have time, I'll dive into our updated cornerback big board, some interesting names that you need to know there. Of course, we got verified measurements, scouting reports, projections, insider intel. We've been doing this thing here since 2002, bringing you the names that you need to know first. And we're really proud of all the hardworking scouting department in the NFL Draft Bible front office. We've got Lauren Davidoff and Dom Ambrios, Jarrett Regal, Ryan Paglia doing a great job. If you're an NFL team, I certainly advise you to look into hiring somebody from the NFL Draft Bible scouting department. Okay. College football news, okay? Before we get into the power rankings, we've got to start off with the big news. Mike Gundy fired after 21 years. I'm a man. Okay. He will be forever infamous for his tirade there. It's got to be at least 10 years ago. I wish we could pop it up. We are trying to get a producer for the show, so please support the show so we can get a producer here and liven things up and just bring you an even better show each and every day. But Mike Gundy fired. So, you know, the Oklahoma State program now, when a head coach is fired, we talked about it with the UCLA and Virginia Tech firings with Russ Landy on Saturday, and we'll talk more about this on Saturday with Russ. because he suggested that, Oklahoma State needs to get with the program, hire themselves a general manager, and install like a front office environment that just about every power conference team does nowadays. But here's the problem with coaches like Mike Gundy is, in the current football landscape, if you don't adapt and adjust like we're doing today, we lost a rundown this morning. We're doing the best we can to adapt and adjust. But this NIL deal, like, I truly believe it's this new era that got Gundy fired, because he's an old school ball coach. He doesn't want to be involved with raising money and collectives. And, if you don't adapt and adjust to the times and evolve, well, this is what happens. You get canned. And I'm looking at you, Dabo Sweeney, because he could be next on the firing line. I mean, Gundy is the face of Oklahoma State. He's been there for 21 years. And it's just a harsh reminder that even the legends of the game rarely get to go out on their old terms. So this should be a warning signal to Dabo Sweeney, because he's another one that refuses to open up to the transfer portal. Now, he has done better in the last year or two, bringing in a handful of guys. But if you look around the college football landscape and look at the top 10 teams, they're all dipping into the portal. They're spending north of $20-30 million in NIL. And if you can't keep up with the Joneses, well, they're going to go find somebody else who can. So Mike Gundy hits the road. So what's next for Mike Gundy? Since he doesn't want to really be involved with NIL, I could certainly see him surfacing at a small school, maybe an FCS program, Central Oklahoma, where you don't have to worry about that kind of thing. You just come in and coach ball. But what's next for Oklahoma State? Where do they turn with their head coach carousel? I have some hot candidates here to bring to you. And, UTSA head coach Mike Traylor, who's been a really hot head coaching candidate, Mike Traylor, that is. He's been mentioned as one potential candidate. Also, Texas A&M offensive coordinator Colin Klein, also rumored to be in the mix, as is Oklahoma offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle. And the guy that I would love to see, a good friend of the show, maybe we can pop him up during his bye week, is G.J. Kinney, who is one of the fast rising head coach superstars in college football. I mean, go look at his track record and what he's done every step of the way. Previously at Incarnate Ward, now at Texas State. G.J. Kinney, this would be a great get for G.J. Kinney. Now, I mentioned Oklahoma offensive coordinator Ben Arbuckle, a hot name for this Oklahoma State candidacy. Well, Oklahoma got dealt a big blow yesterday, and John Mateer, if you didn't see the news, who, by the way, was a co-favorite for the Heisman Trophy along with Carson Beck, I believe, he's now suffered a broken hand. He's going to miss, well, we don't have a timeline in terms of how long he's going to miss, but he did have surgery yesterday on a broken bone in his right throwing hand. I would imagine that's going to take several weeks, 3 to 4 weeks to heal, I would guesstimate. And I guess it's going to be a pain tolerance threshold issue in terms of when he can return. But he was accounting for 351 yards of total offense per game, 11 total touchdowns passing and running the ball. Obviously a dual threat quarterback there. And, it's funny, I do peek a glance at some of the other respected NFL draft analysts and what they got going on with their mock drafts. And I got to say, like, I know he's having a good season. I know he's a Heisman Trophy candidate. But, man, John Mateer, I've seen him in the first round. I've seen him as the number 1 overall selection. Let's pump the brakes now, can we? This guy's got a long ways to go in terms of being an NFL signal caller, being able to read a defense, progressing through more than the first option that's there. He likes to tuck and run and take off. And listen, he's got all the makings of an NFL quarterback, but there's, I think, still a ways to go in terms of his development. And should Ben Arbuckle leave for Oklahoma State, well, what does that mean for John Mateer moving forward? Now, I will say he's an electric playmaker. He's almost like a point guard-esque type of quarterback, can beat you with the arm, beat you with the legs, but putting him in the first round ahead of guys like Garrett Nussmeier and Carson Beck, Even Drew Allar now, I don't see it. Maybe I'm wrong, but as of right now, on September 24th, 2025, I am not ready to put John Mateer as the number one pick. I'm not ready to even include him in my first round mock draft. Maybe I'll put one out soon over on the website since we're a month into the season. All right, we're going to try and get to the college football power rankings, but I did tell you I watched the Steve Sarkisian press conference, all 33 minutes of it, because these things have become gold. If you haven't been keeping up with the weekly press conferences conducted by Coach Sark, they've shed a lot of insight on what's going on down there with Arch Manning and company. And I'm just pulling up the Longhorn schedule here because they're going to now be on a bye this week. And so we got a lot of insight from Coach Sark. I'll start off with Arch Manning, who he said really had a lot of high-level throws in terms of that Sam Houston State game, and is now playing with conviction. So everybody that was quick to write off Arch Manning, let's just wait and see. As I mentioned, Texas is going to be on the bye week, but they emerge out of the bye playing in one of the toughest places there is in college football, which is the Swamp down there in Florida. And he acknowledged, like, Billy Napier, another head coach that reportedly is on the hot seat, but the Gators, even though they have a poor record, they've been playing close. They've been keeping it close with teams like LSU and Miami. So Sark spoke about going down to the Swamp, the hostile, loud environment. They've also got a tough schedule. They're going to face teams such as Oklahoma, Georgia, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt. As you know, SEC is a real grind, but Sark heaped praise on Arch Manning. He talked about the explosive plays. I think they had 20 explosive plays against Sam Houston State. Pretty remarkable. They scored on the first 9 drives of the ball game, including 7 touchdowns. And they have now played 87 players. Unbelievable when you think about it. NFL is 53-man rosters. Well, the Longhorns have played 87 games, but Sark did mention, like, this is going to be an evaluation week because when they travel on the road, they can only travel with 74 players. So he said they're going to take this week to evaluate, determine who those 74 players are amongst the 87 who have seen game action. And that's another part of managing a college football organization, right? That's what they are. They're not schools. They're not programs. It's an organization now with the whole NIL and transfer portal. So I did want to also mention he gave a lot of kudos to Chris Gilbert as their top recruiter. So Chris Gilbert, a name you need to know behind the scenes for what's going on down there in Texas. I mentioned the NIL money. Well, Texas was one of the big spenders, and now that they're on the bye week, they actually get to recruit and host prospects during their bye week, and Chris Gilbert will be taking the lead there for the Texas Longhorns. All right, we got Howard Balzer coming up in just a few minutes. I promised you the college football power rankings, and we're going to just run through them real quick in terms of where I see them. I got Ohio State number 1, Miami Hurricanes number 2, LSU Tigers number 3, Georgia Bulldogs coming in at number 4, and then 5 and 6, Penn State and Oregon. They will actually meet this week. So number 4, Georgia will play Alabama this week. Some big-time matchups in the college football slate. Number 3, LSU will play number 13 ranked Ole Miss. So Ohio State, Miami, LSU, Georgia, Penn State, Oregon. There's Oklahoma, who we just talked about, at number 7. We've got the Texas Longhorns at 8. I have had the Indiana Hoosiers in my top 10 the entire season. It's been posted on the website all year long. They're holding strong at number 9 in my top 10. It's kind of funny that the AP media poll doesn't see it that way. They just smashed the 9th-ranked Illinois team by 50 points. They put up a 60-burger against Illinois and still get no respect. Kirk Signetti, my paisan over there, what's he got to do to get crack into the top 10? I believe the Indiana Hoosiers will have something to say about this college football playoff. And Fernando Mendoza, I mean, he could very well wind up as the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming 2026 NFL draft the way he's playing. Florida State rounds out my top 10. and that is the college football power rankings. Of course, we've got quarterback rankings, CFL rankings, UFL rankings, indoor rankings. We had our good friend Mike Kelly join the show yesterday, the new commissioner of the Continental Football League. We've isolated that interview over on the YouTube channel. If you want to check it out, find out what that league is all about, kicking off in the summer of 2026. All right, coming up, we have our special guest who joins us each and every Wednesday, Howard Balzer, 50 years of covering the NFL, of course, a Pro Football Hall of Fame selection committee, Sirius XM radio, and doing great things at the Cardinals Wire. We'll talk about some of the top headlines happening around the NFL. We'll take a sneak peek preview at that Cardinals Seahawks Thursday night football matchup. And coming up at 11 a.m. in 22 minutes, we're going to have some breaking news. We're going overtime here on the All Access Football Daily Show. We figured it's hump day. We'll help you get through the week with a little bit of breaking news, All Access Football exclusive. So buckle up, hunker down. We'll be back right after this. Hey, RIC and a place to be. Ric Serritella checking in from the legendary Jersey Shore for the world famous All Access Football. And you're tuned in to the All Access Football Daily Show, our newest venture here at the world famous All Access Football, read by all 32 NFL teams and 50,000 subscribers from around the world. And I've been blessed and fortunate enough to work in this great game of football for the past 2 decades. It's our 24th season of providing you independent analysis when it comes to the NFL draft and everything pigskin, whether it's the NFL, college football, NFL draft, CFL, UFL. We'll be with you each step of the way, especially for draft season when we really get into high mode. Of course, it's all brought to you by the 2026 NFL Draft Bible, published in April, featuring over 500 in-depth scouting reports with our boots-on-the-ground analysis. We'll be on location at the All-Star Games, the NFL Scouting Combine, the Pro Day Circuit, counting you down to that 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh. And be sure you check us out over at allaccessfootball.com. We've got a great promo discount for you listeners at home. If you enter our promo code RICVIP, you'll get a 30% discount off of all of our premium content. You'll unlock the magic. Get our NFL Draft Insider Reports, Scouting Notebook, of course, the World Football All Access Football Report published on Wednesday. It's your new home for real football talk. So follow along, give us a shout. We hope you're enjoying the show. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X, please give it a like, a share, a subscribe, and we'll be with you each and every day here, 7 days a week, live, 10 a.m. Eastern, no days off, rain, sleet, hail, snow. The show must go on. For Ric Serritella and the All Access Football Daily Show, keep it locked, everybody. All right, back at it again. RIC and the place to be. Ric Serritella here on this hump day, Wednesday, September 24th, 2025. We're working our way through the technical aspect of the show here. Buckle up and hunker down. It's been a long day here. We're just getting started on the All Access Football Daily Show. We're going to go overtime today because we got a special announcement coming up at 11 a.m. Eastern with our special guest who joins us here on the show each and every Wednesday. He's a legend in the making, 50 years of covering the NFL, part of the Sporting News, Pro Football Weekly, Sports Exchange Familia, of course, a voter for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, a host on Sirius XM satellite radio, Also holding it down over at cardswire.com, giving you everything you need to know when it comes to the Arizona Cardinals. He joins us here on the show from the desert. I don't think he got much sleep because he's sending me emails at like 4 a.m. on the West Coast time. But here is Howard Balzer. Good morning, Howard. Did we get any sleep at all?
I did get some sleep. I do have to admit that I woke up with a little bit of a headache. And so I was going back and forth. And then I said, okay, I'm going to throw caution to the wind. And I am going to take a little bit of a Buddha sediment. I can't pronounce it. Tylenol. And so no, I'm good.
Be careful with the Tylenol now.
I know. That's what I mean. That's why I went back and forth. Because I'm not pregnant, but hey, you just never know about this stuff you put in your body, and of course we all know that there's no medications out there that have potential side effects, right? It's like you watch a commercial on TV and it's for some new drug that they've come up with, and half the commercial is listing all the possible things that can go wrong. It's just the nature of how it all is. So, but no, I'm feeling good. I'm doing good. And I do want to say one quick note, because here you talk about the Continental Football League and this and that. I think it's great what you do with All Access Football, because those who are pure, true fans of football, they just love it, whatever the football is. Yeah. I can remember when I was at the Sporting News and covered big time the USFL back in the 80s. And then we've had, of course, the spring leagues and, and all those things. And it's just great when when there's a lot of football going on. So it's great that, that you cover and keep a tab on all of those things. So
yeah, no, appreciate that. And that's why we're the home for real football talk, everything football. If you like Pigskin, you'll love the show. And we also talked Canadian Football League, their new rule changes yesterday. And I'm sure we'll pop up some guys from the United Football League. But the great thing about the Continental Football League is it now connects the football calendar even more. With the UFL starting, they're going to bump up their schedule this year and start, I think, the week after the Super Bowl. Then their season ends and the Continental Football League runs up, and that runs into CFL and NFL training camp. So we're excited about it. I mean, more football, more opportunities, more to talk about. And there's a lot to get to this week, man. I'll tell you, NFL.
One quick tease real quick.
Yeah.
Because I mentioned last week how, all those pictures you throw up there in your breaks. And I saw the one with you and me, and I couldn't figure out where we were when that was taken. Well, just now, or just in the last minute or so, I looked closely and I noticed in the right corner of the photos up there for a split second was a tent that said Hall of Fame Village on that. So I said, oh, that's where that photo was taken in Canton, which is a little tease for what we'll be talking about when that clock hits 11 a.m.
I love it.
In about 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm so excited about our announcement. Breaking news here on the All Access Football Daily Show. And we appreciate Howard sharing it with us. Coming up in 15 minutes or so. We're not allowed to make the official announcement just yet. But like I said, we got plenty of get to between now and then. And I want to get your thoughts, because I mentioned it earlier in the show. Like Derrick Henry, to me, I believe will be a future Pro Football Hall of Fame inductee, just in terms of the resume he has compiled. But now you take a look at what's transpired here the last 3 weeks. I mean, he looks like a whole different player. I mean, 3 straight games, 3 straight fumbles, the frustration on the sidelines, the Ravens post-game tone just sounds like a defeated team. And he's got the Fumble-Rooski, and he faces Mr. Fumble-Rooski, Andy Reid, and the Kansas City Chiefs this week. They're both 1-2. I mean, what do you make of Derrick Henry before we get into the matchup? Like, it sounds like he's said he's trying to overcome this thing. It sounds like it's almost a mental thing now.
Well, it can be, and that's the thing about it. And you can't. It's easy to say you can't be thinking about it, but hey, guess what? Maybe a shock to a lot of listeners and a lot of fans that like to go on social media and just go nuts. These are human beings, right? And I'm sure all the people that go on social media and, with all the loud noise out there that just love to get coaches fired or fire coaches and all that, we know that in their jobs or in their lives, they never make mistakes, right? People never make mistakes. Everyone is perfect out there except for athletes, but you can't let it get into your head. And the one thing, though, I always caution, and you have to believe that, I mean, he's certainly not going to have a fumble in 17 games. You have to believe that. and you have to go out there and play, but you also have to work to protect the football. And other teams have had that moment where they were just able to get him in the right angle at the right moment and punch the ball out. So you just got to be sure that you're securing the football. And, with the Ravens, I mean, here's a team, Rick, that in 3 games has scored 111 points, but yet they've lost 2 of them. And so they're going to get the ship righted. I mean, what the heck? Everyone's talking about his fumbles, but no one's talking about the fact that Lamar Jackson has been sacked 12 times in 3 games, including 7 in that game against the Lions. So you have to believe he'll get it right and be able to move on from it. But you just never know. But the other thing that you have to caution about is small sample sizes. And that's what happens in the beginning of a season. And so, if you'd had a couple in the middle of the year or one here, no one would be talking about it. But when it happens 3 games in a row, those are the things that sometimes will send up a red flag. And so you can't keep doing that, though, because when it starts costing your team games, then it's something that you just need to have to figure out a way to correct.
Yeah, not the first star running back to have such issues. I remember Tiki Barber back in the Tom Coughlin days, and Coughlin actually used to make them walk around the facility when they weren't practicing with the ball tucked high and tight. And, say what you want. It cured the Fumblerooski issues of the one Tiki Barber. We'll see what the Baltimore Ravens come up with Derrick Henry. Now, both of these teams are 1-2. Hard to get into the playoff hunt when you're 1-3, although I do have both the Ravens and Chiefs holding firm in my top 10. I'm not going to hit the panic button just yet, but this is a big game. Who needs it more, do you think?
Well, that's a great question, because when you look at the divisions that they're in, obviously the Chargers are off to an excellent start, undefeated after 3 games. The Broncos are a better team. A bad loss, 2 games ago, a tough loss to the Colts, where they actually had the game won after a field goal was missed, but got called for a rare leverage penalty, which moved the kick 15 yards closer, and that contributed to the Colts winning that game. And here the Colts are undefeated, and the Chiefs with a big win, obviously this last weekend. They're going to get Xavier Worthy back at some point, 3 more games, and they'll get Rashee Rice back. So, but in a game like this, it is important, and the divisions they're in are hard. I mean, the Steelers are playing pretty good football. I mean, who knows? Was it just a mirage that the Browns found a way to beat the Packers? I mean, who knows? It might be a one-off, but you just never know. And you really wonder now, especially with the decision in New York with Russell Wilson. I mean, the Bengals, I mean, it's hard to believe that they're really going to go anywhere for a full rest of the season with Jake Browning at quarterback. So do they look into Russell Wilson when you have Jamar Chase, when you have T. Higgins, you have the makings of a very good offense? You wonder about it. Who knows, what they'll do. The Bengals are a very conservative team when it comes with the way they operate. But those are tough divisions. And I think the Ravens, could be challenged, and so will the Chiefs. That's just the nature of the National Football League.
Yeah, it's interesting with the Bengals because they do have a 2-1 record, and I did see the Cleveland Browns. However, Broderick Jones and Jack Conklin both going down this week. They're going to be down both their starting tackles. So I feel like the Ravens, they can claw their way back into the division. Pittsburgh really right now the only team standing in their way. But man, if Kansas City falls to 1-3 in a highly competitive division, they're going to really be trying to dig themselves out of a hole. And I do think Worthy's coming back in a limited capacity this week, but as you mentioned, the Chiefs are going to continue to get stronger as the season goes on. They'll get back Rashee Rice. They activated rookie Jalen Royals last week, so big time matchup here on the NFL docket. Now, you mentioned Russell Wilson before we get to the Cardinals. Big news here in Jersey, the beginning of the Jackson Dart era, and there's a lot of speculation now that Brian Daboll is fighting for his job. A lot of people believe Joe Shane and Brian Daboll could be attached to the hip since they both came over from Buffalo together. And let's be honest, the Giants now, they'll be lucky if they got the Chargers this week. They get a somewhat easy game against the Saints, but then they got the Eagles, Broncos, and the Eagles again. Like, it's hard to find a path for some Giants victories here, and they're looking like another 3-13 season. So let me ask you, what is the future of the New York Giants organization? Do you think does this duo stay intact another season? Will they blow it all up? What direction will the organization move in?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you wonder. Coaches obviously can never, admit it, but sometimes when you go with a young quarterback, it buys you time. And obviously, Jackson Dart has shown a lot of good positive things. No, you don't expect them, to win a lot of games with him, but it kind of, you go back to the season when Eli Manning was drafted high in the first round, and they had Kurt Warner there, and the Giants were actually 5-4 when they decided to sit Kurt down and put Eli Manning in there. And I believe after that, so they played 7 games. After that, they might have won 1. I'd have to go double check, but they weren't very good the rest of the year with Manning getting his first taste of the NFL. Well, next year they were pretty darn good, and that was a positive move, getting him that playing time, and rather than it being for the first time at the start of the season. So this will benefit Jackson Dart. Does it buy all those guys time? I'll have to wait and see on that. But this is obviously a move that they say, this is our guy for a long time, and we can build, around this. A lot of it could come down, Rick, to just how do they play? I mean, you can, it sounds crazy, but you can go 4-13, whatever it is, and still have a good feel about things because you're improving, you're getting better, and you're doing the things that, if you have close games, those are the things you always have to look at. And so you always you can never make evaluations after 3 games, after a small sample size, but you just have to wait and see how it plays out. We know that John Mara doesn't like to make, bold moves like that. And it all depends on how much he believes in those guys and how much he believes that they can continue, hopefully, to build this team. You just wonder, I mean, heck, they brought in Jameis Winston, they brought in Russell Wilson, then they draft Jackson Dart, and you say, well, with that situation, why not just let Jackson Dart play? But you do want to bring a guy in a little slowly sometimes, and that's what they've done. And so, we'll see. We'll see how it goes the rest of the season. But you're right. There probably won't be a whole lot of wins on the schedule, but a lot of times it's how you play and what the feeling is from everyone in the building.
Yeah, and I think you're treading a slippery slope too, because if you do clean house, you're bringing a new GM and head coach. Jackson Dart wasn't their hand-picked guy. You're getting to another situation like when Shane and Dayball came, Daniel Jones was not their hand-picked guy. And then you wonder, Giants picking up a top of the draft, do they eye a quarterback coming out that they view? I mean, it could really get crazy there in New York. Now,
real quick is that they got to the playoffs with Daniel Jones as the quarterback. And yes, they didn't have a great record, but they won 9 games and they were in the postseason. And I've always thought, Rick, that Daniel Jones has been one of the, he's in that class of play some bad games and people watching. They don't know what goes on behind closed doors. They don't know game plans. They don't know, a lot of things, the blocking, all those different things and what a player has to have around him. And Daniel Jones also had a propensity to be injured. And so then, and they had Saquon Barkley that year that they made the playoffs, and then they allowed him to walk out of the building. And so now we see what Daniel Jones is doing in Indianapolis. Again, I'm not saying he's among the elite in the NFL, but you can win games with Daniel Jones at quarterback if you do the things around him that give you a chance to win. Sometimes I think that the outside noise thinks that football is like tennis or golf, where someone just does it on their own. Quarterback can't win on his own. There's 10 other guys out there on the field that have to do their jobs for there to be any success. And even then, when you allow them to do their job, you still have to, you're still going against other NFL teams. So I think that, there's a lot of overreaction. Certainly, social media just has things ramped up to a fever pitch, and the stuff on there, my wife always says to me, why do you even read that stuff? I mean, but sometimes you're almost addicted to it just to see what people are reading. But I've stopped responding to a way because I know the way I look at the game is never going to convince, those people who are, when an offense goes bad, never look at the offensive line, never look at the players around him. It's either the quarterback or the play caller. right? Like if guys don't block, or if receivers are dropping passes, or you can't run the ball, all of a sudden that's because of play calling, not because of the execution of the players. And I've always believed, the famous quote by John McKay when he was the coach of the Buccaneers, and someone asked him in a bad season, what's your opinion on the execution by your team? And he says, I'm in favor of it. But but that's what it comes down to. It's really quite simple. It's you have to have guys who can make plays. That's what wins or loses games in the NFL, especially when you have so many close games. It comes down to what the players do with the play call, not the play call itself. But it's easy. Fire the coach. But I think that's, it's kind of out of control at times. And actually, I had a story that went up last night at Cardinals Wire on the Cardinals situation, where all anybody wants to do. I mean, here was a fan base, Rick, that when Drew Petzing was interviewed for one or two head coaching jobs after last season, people said, oh, God, I hope they don't lose him. This guy's an excellent offensive coordinator. They're running the ball well and all these things. That's what the fan base was saying. Now, because they've struggled in 3 games, fire him. It's all the play calling. I mean, it doesn't make any logical sense. But then again, we all know there's not a whole lot of logical sense being made on social media and from a lot of people that I believe really don't understand what goes on in the game. And then they cite Pro Football Focus ratings. Oh, come on. Don't get me started, on that one. And so anyway, that's my rant for the morning.
Well, not enough time in the show to get me started on PFF, but it's funny. I mentioned Lou Anarumo earlier in the show. He was a head coach candidate during his time with Cincinnati. They canned him, and look at what the Colts are doing now on defense. So, all right, we have some breaking news coming up, but let's get some Cardinals talking. You mentioned Cards Wire. You got it covered. Everything you need to know on the Arizona Cardinals. Trey Benson now thrust into the spotlight with the news that James Conner is going to be out for the season. I see here, I don't know where, I got this from NFL Communications, actually, Howard. The way it's worded is a little bit weird, but Benson is the only running back in the NFL to have over 170 rushing yards on under 30 carries. It tells me he's averaging a lot of yards per carry. But what's the future of this Cardinals backfield here?
Here's the thing about it. The running game, even with Conner, and he's been there 2.5 games basically, just has underperformed. And here's the danger when you look at, here's his total yards, right? And here's the average per carry. Well, Trey Benson this season so far in 3 games, small sample size, has a run of 29 yards and a run of 52 yards. He also has a run of 7 he has 2 decent runs on give up plays. A run of 7 on 3rd and 17 and a run of 11 on 3rd and 21. And so the defense is just say, oh, good, hand it off to the guy. And, you just don't want to give up a first down. His other 17 carries, aside from those 4, have been for 26 total yards. And Conner has been like that too. It was interesting, referenced it on Monday about the game Sunday. And he says, we had around 24 running plays called, and I would define 17 of them as non-efficient. Well, I had already done some research on it, and that's in the story I wrote. James Conner had 9 carries in that game before he got injured, and 6 of them were for 1 yard and another for 0. And that's been the story of the running game. And when you don't run the ball, especially on first down, then you're 2nd and long, and then a lot of times you're in 3rd and long, makes 3rd down conversions tough. The Cardinals right now, Rick, are ranked next to last in the NFL. And here's a stat that hardly anyone ever quotes. Next to last in the NFL in yards on first down, 3.93, ranks 31st. So when you're not converting 3rd downs and they're tied for the 8th worst in the league in 3rd down percentage, you're not moving the chains. And then it's hard to get into rhythm with your offense because you just haven't had that many plays. And that's what has dogged them for these last 3 games. And now without Conner, they've got to do this turnaround before playing Seattle tomorrow night. And you're not going to solve a lot in 3 days. I mean, these teams on playing Thursday night games, that's another travesty. They don't even practice up to the game. They just have walkthroughs. Yeah. I mean, you can't practice. And then the team that has to travel on Wednesday after playing on Sunday, I mean, it's just insane. But let's remember the NFL is very concerned about player safety. So, but we'll see. They're home tomorrow night against another division rival, the Seahawks. that they haven't had a lot of success against in the last decade. And, they realize how important this game is, but it's not the end of the world if you lose and drop to 2-2, but it does kind of wash away what was a nice start at 2-0.
Yeah, two teams meeting at 2-1, and makes me a little bit hesitant now. I was leaning toward the Cardinals. I'll have my prediction tomorrow, but that's why we bring up, there's more than meets the eye with these numbers that the NFL puts out. So it looks good on paper, but Howard Balzer is here to tell us it's not what you think it is. Well, how about Marvin Harrison? Because I see on a national level, at least, he's getting a lot of criticism. I think just 15 receiving yards last week, and the inability to win one-on-one. Howard, are you seeing that, or what's the situation in the passing game?
Yeah, it's been a combination of things. It's never one thing. Part of it is, getting open, obviously. But there are people saying that he's not in the game plan, which of course is a very intelligent comment to make. Yeah, they're not game planning to get the ball to Marvin Harrison. The problem, Rick, has been when the ball does go his way, he hasn't been consistent catching it. I mean, he had a huge drop in the game Sunday when he was wide open behind the defense, and it came right to him, and he didn't even try to catch it with his hands. It just kind of hit the inside of his arm and then went to the ground. Had another drop later in the end zone, another miscommunication with Kyler Murray, where he broke a route off at the sideline, and Murray threw it downfield, and it went incomplete. The week before, he had a drop against Carolina. Then, there was a play, kind of a back shoulder throw where he didn't really go up and challenge for it. And so there's been some problems there. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And like I said, it's a combination of things, but a lot of the hope for the Cardinals offense this year was that connection between Murray and Harrison being better. And they've had some nice plays, but Harrison just hasn't been consistent, which is what you need from a guy. And he was somewhat emotional after the game, acknowledging that I'm just not playing at the level I need to play at. And it's very, very frustrating. So who knows? Sometimes in a short week, it's good because you don't want to dwell on what just happened. You just got to go out there and play. So I think it can be corrected. There's still a lot of games to play, but he's a key in that receiver corps because they don't have a lot of, robust guys behind him. And, Trey McBride's a tight end, obviously, and he didn't get that many targets last week. But the wide receiver corps is counting on Marvin Harrison. But defenses know that they can play Harrison a little bit differently because behind him you have Michael Wilson and you have Greg Dortch. Zay Jones, a nice veteran. He dropped a pass at the end of the game against the 49ers that if he catches it on 3rd and 9 at the 49ers 33 in the last 2 minutes, the game's basically over. Because the 49ers only had one timeout after that. But it was a drop. Good defensive play by a rookie corner of the 49ers, Upton Stout. But he dropped it. Then the crazy thing is we learned on Monday that he's in concussion protocol that occurred on that play. So you say, boy, did that contribute to him not being able to hang on to that ball? And those are the details. Those are the little things in the plays that can turn games in either direction for teams. And the Cardinals just have to find a way to be able to come up with those plays to win some of these close games. I mean, every game they've played so far is a one-score game, and they're 2-1 as we speak.
Yeah, they were in a lot of close ball games last year as well, and Marvin Harrison is going to need to turn it around if the Cardinals want to turn it around because they're going to lean on him now, it looks like, even more as they have to pass the ball more without James Conner and an ineffective backfield. All right, you're tuned into the All Access Football Daily Show. We have Howard Balzer, Ric Serritella. I told you we're going to have a special announcement coming up at 11 o'clock, so we're going to go overtime because we've got some breaking news. We are so happy to have Howard Balzer each and every Wednesday on the All Access Football Daily Show. And I got the email at about 4:38 a.m. about a special announcement that he's going to make right here on the show. So take it away, Howard.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Rick. And, of course, we had a big discussion about the Pro Football Hall of Fame back when I joined you at the beginning of this season. And just moments ago, the Pro Football Hall of Fame has announced the 128 modern-day nominees for the 2026 class of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I'll tell you, when you look at that list and you go, oh my goodness. I mean, again, when you see all the quality players that are on that list, and one of the notable things about it, and I know it's been talked about a little bit throughout these last few months, 13 first-time eligible players that are on this list. And you know, one of the things we talked about back going into week one was how it's just hard to break into that final 15 that the selection committee discusses in January to vote on who will be elected last year. And so of that 128, 12 of them, of course, are players that were returning from that top 15. And those are, I'll say them quickly, Willie Anderson, Jerry Evans, Torrey Holt, Luke Kuechly, Eli Manning, Steve Smith Sr., Terrell Suggs, Fred Taylor, Adam Vinatieri, Reggie Wayne, Darren Woodson, and Marshall Yonda. So those 12 guys are in the nominees. Now listen to this list, Rick. Of the 10 semifinalists last year, that's the top 25, that did not advance to the final 15. Anquan Bolden, James Harrison, Rodney Harrison, Robert Mathis, Earl Thomas, Hines Ward, who's been a semifinalist now. This is his 9th time as well, I'm sorry, he hasn't been a semifinalist yet. If he becomes a semifinalist, it'll be his 10th time as a semifinalist, never reached the final 15. Ricky Waters, Richmond Webb, Vince Wilfork, and Steve Wisniewski, who was in his final year of modern day eligibility. So the thing is, when you have 12 guys coming back from the finals last year, and by the way, the 4 players that made the top 7 last year, which is Willie Anderson, Torrey Holt, Luke Kuechly, and Adam Vinatieri, they're automatically in the top 15, in the final 15. So there's only 11 other spots. Here's the first time eligible guys. Now, a lot of them we know are not going to advance that far, but you've got Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Alex Smith, Larry Fitzgerald, Greg Olson, Jason Witten, Frank Gore, LaShawn McCoy, David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey, Geno Atkins, Jarrell Casey, and I'll tell you, one of maybe the more unsung linebackers in the history of the NFL who came back from 2 or maybe 3 torn ACLs. I forget how many there were. Thomas Davis, you know, what a warrior he was. So you have to wonder, how many of those guys are going to take a spot in the final 15, maybe away from a guy that was in the final 15 last season. And so those are some of the names that wanted to get out there. But the process now, there's a special committee that will reduce this 128. It's not the selection committee. It's a special committee that will reduce the 128 to 50. And then we in the committee will get that list of 50 and first vote on 25 and then vote on the final 15 and then meet in sometime in January to elect the modern day guys, coach, contributor, and potential seniors for the class of 2026. Yeah, it just shows the quality of guys. And, you know, I didn't mention guys who are on this list, right, that have never been a semifinalist, never been a finalist, really good players. But do they rise to Hall of Fame level? But, it just shows. And people can go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame website. They can see the whole list and go, oh, my goodness. I say this all the time, Rick. Oh, he's not in the Hall of Fame? He's not in the Hall of Fame? He's not in the Hall of Fame? No, those guys aren't. And it's going to be, once again, just, an amazing process. And then I can just imagine, Drew Brees, you have to believe he's going to be in the final 15. I think Phillip Rivers is deserving. Not sure it'll happen in his first year. But then you got Eli Manning coming back, who last year didn't even make the initial cut from 15 to 10. So there's all these discussions that is part of an amazing day for the selection committee every year.
Fascinating stuff. I'm always into the Pro Football Hall of Fame selection process. Now, you mentioned they're going to cut it down from 128 to 50. Is that the blue ribbon panel that you're alluding to? Who actually determined?
Yeah, it's interesting. They instituted that last year. I believe that's what it's called, a blue ribbon committee. None of us even know who's on it.
Really?
Yeah, they haven't announced who's on it. We don't know. It's not, none of the selectors are on that committee. And so they just did, for whatever reason, they decided to do that. And they've done it with some of the other categories also. And so, but yeah, that's what it's called. and they will be, working. I believe that we'll know the 50 sometime next month. It'll be announced. And so, but like I said, the Hall of Fame keeps that very close to the vest in terms of who are on, those committees that are, cutting down. And then there's usually not any surprises on there, but, it brought in another group of people kind of to look at it and, give kind of an outside look at a lot of these candidates.
It just doesn't seem to make logical sense to me if you have one group cutting down the list and then the people who actually make the selections getting that list. I got to reach out to the Pro Football Hall of Fame and see if we can have somebody on to add clarification, because I mean, the lack of transparency is, I think that's something that the fans should be privy to in terms of how these guys are selected. No?
Well, and I think part of it is that, I'll say this, we on the committee, we get overwhelmed with, whether it's on social media, whether it's emails, whatever it might be, just from fans out there. And hey, I salute them. Fans are passionate. Of course, they want their favorite guy in the Hall of Fame, and they think that the guy has been, whoever it is, has been snubbed. But I think what they probably don't want is this committee then being added to that process of people overwhelming them. Well, you got to vote for my guy. You got to vote for this guy. Here's this guy. And so that could be, one of the reasons that they do that. Because like I said, we get an incredible amount of communication from passionate fans who are advocating for their special players. And it's we're all accustomed to it. It's been like that for a long time. This will be my, including 2026, this will be my 22nd year as a Hall of Fame selector. And that aspect of it has never changed. And so it's kind of just the way it is.
Well, let me just give you some initial reactions. First off, I can't believe guys like Luke Kuechly, that one really stands out to me, because I know it's a shorter career, but he really, I thought, was a dominant. I thought the best linebacker in the NFL for a certain period of time there. Adam Vinatieri is a tough one because kickers are just so tough, but he meant so much to those Super Bowl teams. And then I feel like Darren Woodson almost gets overlooked, because how many guys are on that in the Hall of Fame from the Cowboys dynasty? You got Aikman, you got Irvin, you got Emmett, you got Charles Haley. They must have a slew of I think another one just got in recently from that Dallas team. But in terms of new candidates, man, this is bad news for Eli Manning. I hate to break it to New York Giants fans, as if they needed more bad news. But to me, Drew Brees clearly stands out amongst the three, log-jammed quarterbacks: Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, and Drew Brees. And we had an enlightening conversation a couple weeks back about when Big Ben also joins the mix from that 2004 draft class. But man, Eli Manning could be waiting here. And then Larry Fitzgerald. I do see Fitzgerald maybe ahead of Hines Ward and Torrey Holt, but it's going to be a very interesting selection process. And then you got to weigh Jason Witten versus Greg Olsen. Man, these are some tough decisions, Howard. Let me ask you this. Would you be the presenter, do you think, for Larry Fitzgerald, or how does that process work?
No, that will be Kent Summers here in Arizona, who he's currently retired from full-time at the Arizona Republic, where he was for a lot of years covering the Cardinals beat, and also then became a columnist before he retired a couple of years ago. But he's still on the committee, so he will be the main presenter for Larry Fitzgerald. I will once again present Torrey Holt. You mentioned him. He's an automatic finalist, as I mentioned. This will be his 7th year as a finalist. And it's who knows how close he was last year. We talked about this a few weeks ago. And you mentioned Kuechly. He was in that final 7, which was one of the ways they changed the process. And usually it's been a final 5, and then 5 guys get in. This year they changed it to 7. And because of the voting mathematics of it, only 3 were elected. We'll never know if we had voted to 5, would Torrey Holt have made it to the 5? Would Luke Kuechly, who was in that final 7? We don't know the answer to that, but it definitely kept the class down and makes it harder to get in, especially if there's another class of 3. And so, that's the deal with that. Torrey Holt has been a semifinalist. I'm trying to remember now how many years. I think it's 11. It's around 11 times. Since he became eligible for the first time, he's been a semifinalist every single year, and then been a finalist 7 times, or he this will be his 7th time in 2026. And so, those are the things that happen. And so, like you said, with the guys coming back, these new names, how many first time, last year there were 5 first-time eligible guys that were in the final 15, and Kuechly and Vinatieri made that 7. Eli Manning did not survive the cut to 10. He was a first-time eligible last year. Steve Smith, Sr., did not survive the cut to 10. And then Marshall Yanda did make it to the 10, but then he did not make it to the 7. You look at his record, and, a guard, so they don't get a lot of fanfare during their career. But you look at his career with the Ravens, he's going to be in there at some point. But like I'm saying, it's only getting harder and harder if this way of doing it continues. And who knows? Yeah, look at it this way. If it's 3 guys every year instead of 5 for the next 5 years, that means by the time the 5 years is over, 10 guys who would have been in won't be. And that's making it harder not only to get in, but it's harder then for other guys to break into that top 15 and be discussed in the room, because so many guys aren't elected each year. Like I said, 12 finalists from last year are coming back. If all 12, well, we know 4 of them will be finalists. If the other 8 are, that only leaves 3 other spots in the finals. So it's tough. I know they're going to keep looking at, and I have a feeling that if the 3 happens again for 2026, it'll be a long, hard look at the process, and perhaps just raising the minimum. If you want to still do it the same way, voting for 5, raise it, because 3 is the minimum. 5 could get in by the rule, not by the math. It's very hard, but 3 have to get in. And so maybe raise that to 4 to at least get one other guy in that is deserving. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens, coming down the road. But this is the process that there will be for 2026.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of log jams if they don't do something about how they alter the selection process. One last guy I want to mention, because Ricky Running Waters, like, for him, can't even crack the finalist. I always felt like he was one of the more complete backs in NFL history, and I guess I don't think Roger Craig ever got in either. But
and he was finalist several times. I don't have the number in front of me. He has been in the seniors now for a couple of years and has gotten some strong consideration there, but he hasn't made that final 3 finalists. But you're right about Waters. But here's the interesting thing about him, and I wanted to mention something about Darren Woodson too, who you brought up. Waters, this is his final year of modern day eligibility. And so that means his 20th year as a modern day eligible guy.
Decades fly, man. Let me tell you.
He's been a semifinalist in the previous 19 elections 5 times out of those 19. Darren Woodson has had more success moving on in the process. He's been a finalist 3 times and a semifinalist 9, and this is his 18th year of eligibility. So he only has 2 more classes to go. And if he doesn't get in, like Waters, then where do they go? To what we call the abyss of the seniors category. And I'll tell you another guy to look at. I was mentioning Yanda. Steve Wisniewski.
Yeah, I have him here too. Yep.
Was just a killer in his time in the another guard, though. Another guard. But this is his final year of eligibility, and he's only been a semifinal, never a finalist. He's been a semifinalist twice in 19 years.
That's unbelievable.
What we do is look at the tape, look at what his accomplishments, And sometimes you just don't know why certain guys kind of fall into the cracks. And then when they're not a semifinalist for a certain amount of time, unless someone is strongly advocating for them, then they kind of get forgotten about as you have this new group of first-time guys coming in every year, plus all the returning players.
It feels like offensive linemen generally are just harder to get that push. Like Willie Anderson was buried in a terrible Cincinnati team for his whole career. But I mean, that's another guy to me that really deserves a good hard look.
I think he got overlooked, I believe, in the beginning because he played right tackle. And most of the guys that were getting in were your left tackles. You know, your Jonathan Ogdens, Walter Jones, Willie Roaf, Orlando Pace. In the last few years, you know, Tony Baselli was a left tackle, short career, but a left tackle. And so Anderson has gotten some traction in recent years, and this will be his 5th year as a finalist. And I think he's been eligible for about 12 years, somewhere in that number. But he's gotten some traction because of some good advocacy where it was pointed out that, hey, don't judge him just because he was a right tackle and not a left tackle. And then again, he did make that cut to 7, in the 2025 class. So we'll see what happens with him too. But, there's nobody, I don't think there's anybody on this list that you would say is not deserving of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And the only thing that rubs me the wrong way is when you hear comments, Rick, that, we didn't like a guy, right? Or they didn't get the respect that they deserved. Well, hey, I'm on the committee. We all realize how hard it is when we have to make these gut-wrenching decisions of who you vote for. But I always say this line: we don't vote against people. We vote for people. And sometimes the votes don't fall the guy's way. And the other part of it is, of the guys that were in that 7 last year, for example, we don't know if 1 or 2 of the players missed getting that 80% by 1 or 2 votes. And that's true of all the reductions. They're probably the guys who don't make the list in the reductions, at least the first group of guys, aren't very, very many votes behind. But that's just the nature of it when you only have 50 people voting. But no one knows how close anybody was. No one knows. Now I had heard that there was someone from the coach contributor and seniors category that was close last year to getting the 80%, along with someone else from that modern day group. We don't know who it was. We don't know how many votes they missed by, but we just know that at least 2 guys were close to being elected. But as we know, close doesn't count in the Pro Football Hall of Fame voting.
Yeah, hand grenades and horseshoes. Is Bill Belichick a candidate this year?
Yeah, and he will be also. Yes, it used to be. There's an interesting little story. It used to be that a coach became immediately eligible when he retired.
Did Tuna put a monkey wrench into that?
He totally did. He told a couple of guys, including, I believe, Peter King, that don't worry about it. And he was in the discussion, and he told a bunch of guys, "No, don't worry, I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back." And then he didn't get elected, but he came back to coaching, and so then he kind of drifted away. And then the Hall of Fame changed it to 5 years. It's like the players, that you have to be out for 5 years. Well, now they've changed it back to 1. And so here's Belichick still angling to get back into the NFL. And you have to say that, well, even if he doesn't do great, it's not going to really affect his legacy. But I can see where maybe 5 is too long for a coach, especially when they retire, maybe later in life than players. Mm-hmm. But maybe 1 is too short. Maybe it should be 3. Whatever it might be. I mean, what the heck? Joe Gibbs came back after he was elected and came back to Washington and didn't do all that great in his second stint. So those things will happen. But yeah, Belichick could come up, and a lot of people are wondering with Robert Kraft has been close in the contributors category over the last number of years. Will there be this maybe a little emotional push to get both Belichick and Kraft in in the same year, hey, you never know. You never know.
The drama in Canton heats up. Unbelievable, fascinating stuff from Howard Balzer here in this special edition of the All Access Football Daily Show. We went a little bit over time, Howard. We appreciate the time. Anything else, parting shots that you want to get off your chest before you take off?
No, I think we've covered a lot of it. Like you said, we talked about a couple of big games coming up that I know you'll get into in the next couple of days. You got the Eagles and the Buccaneers, both undefeated. Here's one interesting note on the Bucs.
Bucs are all banged up though, man. They
are. Here's a couple of interesting notes. Tampa Bay, undefeated, has won all 3 of their games with plays in the final minute of those games. Pretty phenomenal. This last week, there were 8 one-score games in the NFL, and 7 of them were decided in the final 3 minutes of games. So, we've got it again. I think that the number was 20. So there's been 28 games out of 51, more than half, 28 of 51 in the first 3 weeks that have been decided by one score or less. And of the 8 last week, 4 of them were by a field goal or less. And close games is, I say this all the time, probably sounds a little bit like a broken record, but if you're going to have a good record in this league and make the postseason, you probably have to have a really good record in one-score games, because that, to me, that's one of the biggest separators of this sport.
Yeah, it really has come down to a one-score type of league, and you saw Aaron Glenn getting all excited and dancing on the sidelines a little bit too early there last week.
A little bit early, exactly.
Looked like he was going down the Soul Train line down there, getting all excited. But hey, Howard, man, thank you so much for the time, and then of course we'll do this again next Wednesday, each and every Wednesday here on the All Access Football Daily Show. Thank you so much.
Always my pleasure, man. Take care.
Awesome stuff from the legend, Howard Balzer, 50 years of covering the NFL. And you mentioned that Tampa Bay stat, and that's why, to me, I've just elevated Baker Mayfield with my QB power rankings on the All Access Football Report. I put him into the top 5 now in terms of the best signal callers in the national football field. And Baker Mayfield is working that magic down there in Tampa Bay. Could you imagine if he pulls it off again against Philly? Down Mike Evans, down Chris Godwin, down his starting offensive tackles, down Kalijah Kancey. I mean, the drama intensifies, but what a fascinating conversation there with the Pro Football Hall of Fame. 128 candidates that'll be narrowed down to 50 in the next month or so. And boy, this quarterback logjam with Eli Manning, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, that's really tough on the committee. There's no way they all get in. I mean, they'll be lucky to see one get in. And man, the list here, like Luke Kuechly, I would imagine he gets in this year, but these are some tough calls to make. And kudos to the whole Pro Football Hall of Fame selection committee. This is not an easy job. So, man, we went 90 minutes instead of an hour today, and I see our good friend Adam's Exploits checking in the chat room. It's always good to have you, Adam. Thank you for following us over to the All Access Football Daily Show, and he's excited about the Eagles candidate and Shady McCoy. And, LaShawn McCoy, he might have a little bit of a weight here, Adam, considering all the candidates we just mentioned. And, you don't hear too many running backs there that Howard rattled off in terms of last year's finalist. And man, time flies. Ricky Waters in his final year of eligibility. I always thought he was one of the most complete backs that the NFL has ever seen. Like, I think back to Thurman Thomas and what he did as a pass catcher out of the backfield. And I got to go back and see. I thought there was a year where Ricky Waters, I'm pretty sure he's had 2,000 total yards. I don't know if he ever had 1,000 receiving yards in a single season, but he was an impressive player. But then you think back to, like, Roger Craig's not even in the Hall of Fame, and I thought Roger Craig was better than Ricky Waters. So I guess there's going to be some decisions to be made in Canton and the drama. Like, could you imagine Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft getting inducted in the same year? And probably neither one of them will be the presenter for each other. That'll create some I don't know, awkwardness is the word, but it definitely creates some excitement for sure. And I love I could do a Pro Football Hall of Fame show each and every day talking about this stuff. So I love it. Can't get enough of it. So we appreciate you hunkering down for these past 90 minutes. We went overtime with our special guest, Howard Balzer, who joins us each and every Wednesday. Tomorrow, we're going to have our good friend Chad Ryder checking in from NFL.com, one of the best NFL draft analysts in the world. He's been doing it for a long time, just about as long as we've been doing it. Back in 2002, Chad Ryder's been doing it just as long, if not longer, of course, working under longtime scouting pioneer Gil Brandt is the one Chad Ryder. He'll join us on Thursday. We got a Football Friday affair coming up, the Saturday college football pregame show, Sunday NFL pick'em. We're now 28-20 against the spread. Rough week with the pick'ems, but holding strong at 28-20. Again, the shout out from Adam. Well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all of the listeners for tuning in. Smash that like button while you're here. If you don't mind sharing the show or subscribing, we're here each and every day, 7 days a week, 10 a.m. Eastern. It's your home for real football talk. So I want to thank our special guest, Howard Balzer, for Ric Serritella. This was the 24th edition of the All Access Football Daily Show. We'll be back tomorrow with episode number 25. Hey, RIC in a place to be. Ric Serritella checking in from the legendary Jersey Shore for the world famous All Access Football, and you're tuned in to the All Access Football Daily Show, our newest venture here at the world famous All Access Football, read by all 32 NFL teams and 50,000 subscribers from around the world. And I've been blessed and fortunate enough to work in this great game of football for the past 2 decades. It's our 24th season of providing you independent analysis when it comes to the NFL draft and everything pigskin, whether it's the NFL, college football, NFL draft, CFL, UFL. We'll be with you each step of the way, especially for draft season when we really get into high mode. Of course, it's all brought to you by the 2026 NFL Draft Bible, published in April, featuring over 500 in-depth scouting reports with our boots-on-the-ground analysis. We'll be on location at the All-Star Games, the NFL Scouting Combine, the Pro Day circuit, counting you down to that 2026 NFL Draft in Pittsburgh. And be sure you check us out over at allaccessfootball.com. We've got a great promo discount for you listeners at home. If you enter our promo code RICVIP, you'll get a 30% discount off of all of our premium content. You'll unlock the magic. Get our NFL Draft Insider Reports, Scouting Notebook, of course, the World Football All Access Football Report published on Wednesday. It's your new home for real football talk. So follow along, give us a shout. We hope you're enjoying the show. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X, please give it a like, a share, a subscribe, and we'll be with you each and every day here, 7 days a week, live, 10 a.m. Eastern, no days off, rain, sleet, hail, snow. The show must go on. For Ric Serritella and the All Access Football Daily Show, keep it locked, everybody.